Have you ever walked down the street and all of a sudden you're hit with an intrusive thought that maybe, what if you want to hurt someone? Maybe it's someone you love, maybe it's someone you care for, or maybe it's some random stranger on the street. If that is you, I want you to know there is nothing wrong with you. And we are here today to talk about harm OCD, what it is, why it happens, and how you can manage it. Now, I have one of my amazing therapists who work at our clinic. Her name is Lacey Eukelson, and she's here to sort of present to you what harm OCD is. Lacey has specific lived experience, which I think you're going to find so inspiring. And we're going to really get to the bottom of what you can do if you're struggling with harm OCD. So thank you, Lacey, for being here.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, first of all, you tell me a little bit about your history or your relationship with harm OCD.
Oh man, it's been quite a ride. I think I first started noticing that something was off as young as like 7 years old. I remember like laying in bed at night, not being able to sleep, not being able to turn my brain off. I shared a room with my sister at the time, my little sister, and I just had these vivid thoughts of hurting her. And it almost felt like my brain was like plotting all these ways to do it and all these ways that I could do it. And it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I remember going to my mom. It was early in the morning. She was sitting at the computer. And I distinctly remember going up to her and telling her that I thought I had voices in my head telling me to hurt people. I was so confused.
What did she do?
The hard part is that my mom's mom had schizophrenia. So I think she got really scared and didn't know what to do. Not because she didn't love me or didn't care about me. I think she didn't know what to do and was hoping that maybe it would just go away, or it was just like my young kid imagination. But I think like in a way that kind of sent me a message of like, this is wrong, this is bad if she's not doing anything or not saying anything, or it's not being brought up or talked about again. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I mean, how old were you when you found out that your grandmother had schizophrenia? Because that would be triggering for people with harm OCD as well.
Yeah. I mean, my mom would talk about it. I could probably count on one hand how many times I met her. I just remember hearing really wild stories about her, about how she would like write messages on the walls and do some like really scary stuff. That kind of fed into another subtype I dealt with, thinking that, maybe I was schizophrenic because I had
Yeah.
these thoughts in my head. But I probably didn't really understand her diagnosis probably until later on, 15, 16.
Yeah. So, okay. So you were having the onset of these intrusive thoughts. What compulsions? So we know that harm OCD is a particular subtype of OCD, a type of OCD. And then when we have these OCD obsessions and these subtypes, we engage in compulsions. What were some of the compulsions that you were engaging in to sort of reduce or remove the uncertainty that you felt around these thoughts?
Yeah, I had a lot of mental compulsions. I would do a lot of reassurance, just constantly reassuring myself I would never do that. I'm a good person. I would use situations as evidence, right? Like, well, I was just in the kitchen with knives and I didn't do anything, so that means that, I'm okay. And so much avoidance. Anything that could be used as a weapon, I avoided.
So you were avoiding knives or scissors or needles?
I was avoiding any type of knives, whether it was plastic, butter knife, steak knives. I avoided boiling water. I didn't like being in the kitchen because I didn't like being around anything of that vicinity. I avoided garbage disposals. I avoided razors. I didn't like shaving my legs. I didn't like doing anything like that. I mean, it got so bad that it was to the point where like anything that could be used as harm, I avoided it. I avoided going near my windows because I was afraid I was going to jump out of my windows. Core.
So you had self-harm as well?
Yes.
Self-harm obsessions or a subtype, right.
Mhm.
So, okay, and during this time, you're still sleeping with your sister, so I'm guessing, like, how did you fall asleep? Like, what was that like? How did you play with her, or did you avoid her completely too?
Um, I I didn't avoid her so much, because during the day, I'd like to say that, like, I was a little bit more distracted. There was a lot of other stuff going on, and she was younger than me, so she kept me busy for sure. But I begged my parents to put a TV in my bedroom because it was the only way that I could shut off my thoughts and go to bed, was to have something on. Yeah, they did. Mhm. Until this day, I mean, there's times where I'm like, "I need the TV," but I know I don't.
Okay. So, did you ever like, where did you start to, like, learn that you could retreat this or that this was a problem that wasn't just yours? Like, what was the evolution? Now, you are a fully trained OCD therapist. You work
Mhm.
for me, you work with clients with OCD, and you treat our clients with harm OCD.
Mhm.
How did you go from that little girl who avoided everything to now where you are? What did that look like for you?
It looked like a lot of different things, you know, like, I don't think I really understood what was happening until I was probably, like, 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I think an important thing to mention was that I never told anybody what was happening in my head, and probably until then. So I went years and years just suffering in silence, and you would never have known. But I was probably 21, I was at college at Penn State, and I was sharing a dorm room with 3 other girls, and it was, like, unbearable. I was terrified to do, like, anything with them. I was afraid to be around them. I was afraid to be alone in the apartment with them, and I just remember being I was going home for a weekend, and I was on one of those buses. I think it's like a 3.5 hour bus ride. And I just spent the entire bus ride researching, like, what is wrong with me? Why do I have these thoughts that I want to hurt people, but I don't want to hurt people? And that's probably the first time I saw anything about OCD. And of course, I felt like this wave of relief. I'm like, oh, okay, like, I'm not this, psychopath serial killer that I've convinced myself I am for the last, 15 years of my life. So, I mean, that felt good, but it was kind of like a roller coaster because when I got back to school, we had our mental health department was called CAPS. And I remember going in there to speak to a psychiatrist. But something when you go into a mental health facility, you have to fill out the assessment where it's like, do you have any thoughts of hurting yourself? And I'm like, I don't know what to put.
Hmm.
Like, do I put yes? Do I put no? I truly like did not know what the answer was.
What did you
I
write?
put yes.
Yes, you're honest.
Uh,
And what did they
I
say?
I I knew there was also a really long waiting list, so I was like, "All right, well, maybe if I need to get in, like, I need to
Yeah.
see somebody today." But it actually set me back a little bit because I went in to talk to one of the psychiatrists, and again, like, I can remember this so vividly, and she had, like, a student with her, I guess somebody that was shadowing her, and she kind of let her take the reins a little bit, and I just, like, word vomited. Like, I just let it out. I was like, "I have these intrusive thoughts that I'm gonna hurt people, I can't do anything, like, everything I do makes me like, my imagination will just connect to anything," and the psychiatrist was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 like, I need to, like, step in and be the one to, like, take the reins on this." So she kind of, like, not pushed the other, the student out of the way, but kind of took control a little bit, which, like, freaked me out
Yeah.
because I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, why is she panicking?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna send me to the hospital, like, I'm gonna get admitted, I'm not gonna like, graduate college," like, oh, it was a really, really scary experience, and she gave me medication and sent me on my way, but there was no, like, psychoeducation. She didn't once bring up the term OCD. She just really assessed me like, "Do you have intent? Do you want to do these things? No? Okay. Well, here you go."
So, what happened then?
I mean, I think by this point, like, I had tried so many therapists that
bad.
I mean, it's partially, like, I don't wanna say my fault, but, I wasn't that was the first time I was really honest about
Yeah.
my thoughts, and I think at that point, I was like, "Well, I guess I just gotta do this on my own."
Yep, yep.
So I spent more hours, researching and learning like what can I do to fix this or, make this a little bit better. And it's hard to like think back because I spent so much time doing that it took away from like my college experience. But I just did a lot of my own exposures. I would purposely do the things that my thoughts would tell me not to do. If I walked by, a knife in the kitchen, my initial reaction was to avoid and like go isolate in my room. But I would like open up the fridge and be like, what can I cut up for dinner tonight? And really just try to like lean into it. It was hard.
But you were doing that on your own. How did you know to do that? Did you research it? Did you
I
like,
did.
how did you
Yeah.
like, you were doing this on your own. That had to be hard.
Yeah, I did a lot of research on the treatment for OCD. I kind of just diagnosed myself, I know, and just learned about different ways that I could, expose myself in certain situations. I would go to like something else that was really for me was going to the mall because I didn't like walking on the third floor. So I would like purposely go to the mall and walk on the third floor. And I mean, looking back now, there was definitely a bit of like mental compulsion going on at the time. I don't think I was educated enough at the time to really realize what I was doing. But I also think it helps that like once I really got trained in ERP, I could incorporate it even more into my life, which I do now every day. Having children was something that I was absolutely terrified to do. If you would have asked me 15 years ago if I would have 2 kids, I'd be like, "Not a chance." I was so afraid to have kids. But now it's like I use them as I don't wanna say, like, I use them as my ERP, but
Did your OCD attack your partner? Like, was that like, some people will say, like, "Yeah, sleeping next to somebody is really scary," or they'll say, "No, because I knew that they were bigger than me or they could stronger than me." Like, how did that go for you to have to all of a sudden be sleeping in the same room?
yeah, it definitely targeted my partner. It's almost like it would attach to whoever was, like, closest to me physically.
Mm.
So, like, growing up, it would attach to my sister, my parents, my brother. When it was just me and my partner, it would definitely attach to him. I think what helped me, though, was that my partner was so amazing and is so amazing that I felt safe enough to share with him what I was experiencing, not so much in like a reassurance way, but more of just like this is what happens in my head. And just like being able to share that with him felt really freeing and helped.
What did he say? Like if he did a good job, like, we could use it as, like, a transcript for other folks. Like, what did he do? How did you share? Like, tell me a little bit about what that looked like.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, my husband is not an ERP specialist. He does not know anything about OCD. So there was definitely a little bit of reassurance happening, but maybe it was more assurance than reassurance. He really just listened and kind of validated. He's like, wow, that must have been really hard for you to grow up like that. The assurance piece of, well, I know you and I know that you're, a amazing, caring, compassionate person. Whereas like hearing that, I mean, I'm sure it felt good because it felt like reassurance at the time, but hearing that was helpful. A lot of validation. And then just like kind of asking me questions of like, is there anything I can do that can help? Or what do you need from me? How can I know when you're having a hard time? Do you feel comfortable sharing that with me? So him just really providing like that open, safe, validating space for me. I want to say kind of like life changing in a way.
Yeah.
He was like the first person that wasn't family or blood relative that I, shared that with and to, have that type of reaction. Cause, for people with harm OCD, they're afraid that they're going to get locked away or people aren't gonna wanna be around us.
Yeah. And I think too, when you have harm OCD, your inner narrative is really mean. Like, I'm a bad person, I'm disgusting, I'm like, I shouldn't deserve good things, like, I don't deserve love. What kind of person could I be? Like, your brain really can attack you. So, being treated, I've had clients who said, like, being treated kindly felt like almost like a bizarre, triggering thing because their brain was like, what if they don't know you? And what if they missed something? Or what if I didn't explain it properly enough? I think it's so interesting how OCD can completely attack somebody's identity or view of themselves. Did that happen for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Especially during those younger years, I was convinced that I was like this terrible psychopath that was going to eventually like turn into a serial killer. I was a horrible person for even having these thoughts. What type of person would think these things about loved ones? Normal people don't think this way. So there was a lot of that self-talk going on and zero self-compassion, especially because I had no idea what was happening. It also felt like, just to add, like the intrusive harm thoughts also felt like urges sometimes. There were times where it almost felt like my body was like pulling me to do something.
Mhm. Yeah.
Which was even more confusing because it's like, well, now these aren't just thoughts, now they feel like urges, like my body's,
Yeah.
like, pushing me towards this night.
Yeah.
And what kind of person would do that or think about that or have these thoughts?
And they happen so rapidly too. Like, I think I remember when I had a newborn, my daughter, and I was standing, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I was standing on my parents had an apartment. It was like on the 8th floor or the 18th floor. I can't remember. It was very, very, very high up. And I remember holding my newborn baby. She's so sweet. And I had that urge to throw her off the edge of the balcony, but it wasn't a thought. It was like this visceral feeling in my veins and my muscles of my arms where and it felt like it's something I could have decided and initiated and completed within 2.2 seconds.
Uh-huh.
That scared me, it wasn't like, "Oh, maybe you want to." It was like, "Oh, no, no, it's happening, like, in less than a second," and it's so scary. Take me to now, though, like, so you're a therapist who treats OCD now,
Mhm. Yeah.
and you do exposures with clients with harm.
Mhm.
How has that for you? I've consulted with therapists, lots of OCD therapists who are afraid that doing exposures with clients is going to make them snap or it's going to trigger them again. Like, how is it now for you in this place?
Yeah. I mean, I would be lying if I said like intrusive thoughts didn't still pop in and out, you know?
Mhm.
I've learned not to engage with them. I don't really give them any importance or value anymore. I try to look at it from like OCD has taken enough from my life. Like I'm not going to let it take any more. So I think a significant part of my journey has just been like working on taking that power back. So yeah, I mean, when I'm doing, harm exposures with clients, yes, intrusive thoughts might still pop up, but they're as quickly as they come is how they go.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like having a harm OCD can help me be even more creative with my exposures, like a garbage disposal. Like some of my coworkers or even some of my clients are like, Why would you even think that?" And I'm like, "Well."
Right. Yeah. You're like, "Been there, done that." I do think it's really nice when you have OCD to know that your therapist gets it.
Mhm.
Right? That they've been there, that they know the terror of harm obsessions. So that's one perspective. I also wanna say, like, OCD therapists who haven't had this OCD or type of OCD are still highly, gonna be able to treat it because OCD is OCD is
Right.
OCD.
Absolutely.
So I just for everybody listening. But what I do love about your story in particular is you got started on your own. It's not like you came into a routine treatment manual, manualized treatment. You plugged away at this on your own. And a lot of people who are listening and watching might be feeling like, oh God, I need a professional. This
Mhm.
is too dangerous or scary. Like, what advice might you give them if they're trialing this on their own or maybe they don't have access? A lot of what we do is giving access to people who don't have therapy or access to therapy. What advice would you give them?
I think I would tell them that I mean, I understand the belief that like or the thought that it's too hard or it's impossible. I think we are so much more capable than we think we are.
So many people here listening, if you're listening and watching, we know that CBT school is about giving resources to folks who maybe don't have one-on-one therapy. You did this on your own, right? You didn't have a manualized therapist who are treating you using, this very routine treatment. What were the steps like for you? You did research first, obviously. How did you get the confidence to start to do these exposures on your own? Because you shared about them, but I want to make sure people know they obviously weren't easy to do. What was that like for you?
I think, in those moments, I just felt really, like, hopeless, and I kinda got to, like, a breaking point of, like, I'm just really tired of living like this, tired of OCD telling me what I can do, where I can go, who I can be around. I wanna say I wanted my life back, but there's a part of me that's like, I just wanted to learn what my life could be like. So, at the time, it was very difficult for me to find an OCD therapist. I went to school in a small town. So I felt like my only option was to just, do it myself. And I really just leaned into it. I think I used fear as almost like a motivator in a way. Like the idea of not living a life was scarier than these exposures. And I think I started to realize that the more that I did it. And, I would do one exposure and that would kind of give me the confidence to do 3 or 4 exposures. And before I knew it, it turned into 10 exposures. And then, I was just living it, just incorporating it into my everyday life.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I think you've done this beautiful job of explaining, like, and validating, and how I think people are going to feel very understood in how you've explained it. Take me to like zoom in to the moment where you have the intrusive thought.
Mhm.
Back then, you would have avoided, you would have judged yourself, you would have ruminated. Like, what are the steps you take now when you've just had that intrusive thought? Maybe you've had the urge, or maybe it's this image that flashes across your mind. What are some of the steps that you take now to get you through that without doing compulsions?
Yeah. Well, I use values a lot in my not just in my work as a therapist, but in my personal life as well. I think that, like I mentioned earlier with having 2 kids at home, a lot of my harm obsessions attached to them because they are the most important things in my life and I love them dearly. So, if I'm, cooking at the kitchen counter and I'm using, a sharp knife to cut something up and my kid is sitting right there, a couple years ago, my initial reaction would be like, get out now. And now I kind of like lean into it. I use a lot of like thought diffusion statements. There's this skill that I use with my clients a lot. I refer to my OCD as the high school bully. So, like, if you yell back at the bully, it's just going to feed into him. He's just going to make him get louder. If I try to avoid or run away from the bully, he's going to follow me. But if I just kind of like acknowledge him, like, oh, hey there, thanks for stopping by, and then go on about my way, the bully's gonna get bored and he's gonna leave me alone. And that's kind of how I treat my OCD now is when the thought pops up, I'm like, all right, thanks for stopping by, and just kind of go on about my day. I really try to lean into it. Like if my OCD's telling me, I could hurt my child and I need to leave, I will just do the opposite and I'll go give my child a hug and squeeze him a little bit tighter. And yeah, I think that's really helped me remain, I guess, like, I don't know what I was going to say there.
How has it helped you?
It's helped me stay in the present for sure. Be in the present with my kids, doing what's important, being with things that matter to me.
Yeah, amazing. So I think that you've done this beautiful job, and thank you because this is vulnerable information. I'm so grateful. I'm number one, I'm grateful that I get to work with you. I'm so grateful you shared this story. I love that those staff are coming onto the show. It makes me so happy. If there was one message that you wanted to give someone who has harm OCD, or even your family members are listening, what would it be that you would really want them to know?
The first thing that pops up is something that I consistently share with my clients, and it's that the thoughts aren't the problem, the reaction is.
Mm,
And yeah, I don't know why that's just the first thing that pops up, but it's something that I consistently share with myself, with clients. Yeah, I feel like it's a important message.
amazing, Lacey. I have loved chatting with you about this. I feel like we could go over this for hours, right? Because there's so many nuances that we could learn as treating a harm OCD. If people want to do this on their own, they can head over to your OCD Toolkit, which is at CBT School, and they can work with you by going to my website because, again, you're amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom and your story and your cool, like, little ways in which you've gotten through this. It's very, very inspiring.
Of course, I'm very grateful to be here and to be able to share this, and hopefully it reaches somebody who needs it.